The stakes just got higher in that interest rate fixing scandal as cities and states are now fixing their legal sights on more than a dozen banks and claiming the alleged rate rigging is partly to blame for their own financial distress. The city of Baltimore leading the charge, and others like the state of Massachusetts, Nassau County in New York State, and even California's public pension system may soon follow.
Zachary Karabell of River Trice Research says these moves are outright ridiculous. You can't blame their bad decisions on the rate rigging scandal. But attorney Andrew Stoltmann says they've got a case. Zach, you first. Why aren't you buying this?
Look, first of all, this is not about whether Barclays did something absolutely egregious. They did. It's the degree to which municipal officials, and I'm sure you'll start seeing other pension funds, grasping at straws to try to avoid the responsibility for their lending decisions and their revenue decisions that are simply not matched with current tax receipts. I mean, if Baltimore had a different LIBOR rate quoted to it when it was taking out these loans, if it had been a lower LIBOR rate than the one that actually they took, they would have borrowed more money. I mean, the fact is, these are totally separate issues. It's not about whether Barclays did anything right or wrong. It's that these cities and these municipalities have their own issues, and they're certainly looking to deflect attention from that.
Andrew, what do you think? I mean, the FDIC chair Sheila Bair reacted to the LIBOR scandal this morning. Let's get your reaction to what she said.
Well, I think it was very serious, yeah. I think, it's one, look, there's always been a fudge factor with LIBOR. This judgment, it's not based on actual transactions, so there's always been a fudge factor. But I never, in my wildest imagination, thought that traders would overtly be calling up the submitters and saying, lower the rate, and calling other banks and telling them the same thing. That's outrageous.
Andrew.
Yeah, there's no question that, look, we have banks that took advantage of municipalities. No question about it. And the fact that there might be other reasons why they might also be in a bad financial shape, that's not a justification for what they did. The conduct was intentional, it was bad, and it is a primary reason, not the exclusive, but a primary reason why these municipalities are in the place they're in. And making excuses for Wall Street, it's not the answer.
How specifically did they lose money? Andrew?
Simple. They were supposed to get a higher rate on the interest rate swaps than what they were supposed to get. So they got shortchanged to the tune of billions of dollars nationally across this country.
Easy to quantify, isn't it, Zach? But is it really versus money borrowed versus money lost here?
It's not easy to quantify at all, and that's the point. And I mean, to say this is a primary cause, if the rate had been 1.1% instead of 1.3%, I'm just making up these numbers, it is absolutely the case that these municipalities would have borrowed more because the liabilities that they were thinking about was what their interest payments should be on whatever they needed to service.
Look,
there's no way you can say this is a primary cause.
No, that's ridiculous. You know what you do, Maria? When you can't fight on liability, you fight on damages. And that's what the banks and their lawyers and our guests are trying to do. They got caught with their hand in the cookie jar, and now they're trying to downplay it.
Don't put me into a box that I'm not in. I know we're all in boxes on TV, but I'm not trying to apologize for Wall Street, nor am I making a justification. I'm saying that if you want to deal with the responsibility for municipal overreach and overspending, deal with the municipal problems that came with that.
Okay,
don't look to someone else to blame for that.
So how big does this get, Andrew? What do you think? I mean, one Stanford professor said that the lawsuits alone could lead to the banks paying out tens of billions of dollars. Is that possible? What's your expectation in terms of how big this gets? We keep talking about Barclays. There are so many other banks involved.
Well, we've just really scratched the tip of the iceberg on it. When you see these other banks settling, you multiply it by at least 5 or 6 banks times hundreds of cities over many years, and not just here in the United States. Remember, this LIBOR rate was used worldwide. I'd put the number at least $10 billion, and it could go dramatically higher.
What do you think about that, Zach?
I mean, look, I'm sure they're going to pay huge liability, either because they have to or because the cost of litigation is going to be far larger than the cost of settling. $450 billion for Barclays, given the amount of money that was actually involved, doesn't strike me as a particularly high penalty, given the trillions of dollars involved. But even back to Sheila Bair's comment, LIBOR is a consortium and in some sense is a cabal. This is throwing off the curtain or allowing us to peer behind the curtain, and behind it is not some sort of, lovely magical wizard, but a set of banks that have always colluded in setting this rate. but the rate is what was quoted, meaning cities borrowed based on what they believed the rate to be, not based on some secret rate that, was different than what they knew.
Excuses again, Maria. We have an apologist for the securities industry and for the banks, what many people, including myself, think is criminal activity.
Excuse me. I'm sorry. We're not on this show to throw unnecessary and inaccurate ad hominems. I am not an apologist for anything. I am stating my view. You are stating your view. I would appreciate it if you stuck with the point and argued your view. I understand you're a lawyer with interest here, but I don't appreciate the ad hominems.
All right, gentlemen, points made. Thank you very much for being with us, both Andrew and Zach.